Good afternoon. My name is Austin Flo, and this is my presentation for discussion 2. I chose question number 2, summarize Lombroso's research. Does current research support some of his findings? I said yes, current research does support his findings. Lombroso was a doctor in the Italian army. He was concerned about the problems, including crime of soldiers who came from the southern Italy. Lombroso's research heavily relied on Darwin's theory. Darwin first proposed his theory of evolution in 1859 on the origin of species. Darwin argued that natural selection through survival of the fittest explained diversity in the animal kingdom. And ultimately, Darwin applied his evolutionary theory to human beings. Lombroso's book broadened the theory considerably. In these editions, he categorized 3 major classes of criminals: born criminals, insane criminals, and criminaloids. Born criminals, which he understood as reversions to a lower or more primitive evolutionary form of development, which constituted about 1/3 of the total number of offenders. Insane criminals, which he grouped as idiots, imbeciles, people that suffer mental disorders such as dementia, alcoholism, and epilepsy. And criminaloids, who didn't necessarily have any special physical or mental characteristics, but those who just committed crime, stating that people born or insane criminals were actually rare. In response to criticism, Lombroso offered to have an impartial committee study of 300 people, 100 born criminals, 100 criminaloids, and 100 normal people. He offered to retract his theories if any of these physical, mental, or psychological characteristics of the 3 groups were found to be identical. However, the challenge was never met since Lombroso's opponents said it was impossible to distinguish these 3 groups accurately. A study by Charles Goring began in England in 1901 and published in 1913. He did this in a response to Lombroso's challenge. He wanted to gather people and determine their head height, the head width, and degree of receding forehead, as well as their head circumference and head symmetry. Essentially, he found no such anomalies. However, he did find some other characteristics such as nasal contours, color of the eyes, and color of the hair, and latandiness. However, he only found small differences that were insignificant. Goring tried to compare different groups, burglars, forgers, and thieves, and so forth, and a basis of 37 specific physical characteristics. And in these groups, he found that there were no more properly related. However, Goring was satisfied when he found that there were differences in criminals, where they were smaller and shorter than non-criminals. Essentially, people in the same occupation, people that were shorter and weighed less were more likely to be criminals, indicating them as general inferiority or a hereditary nature. Later assessments of Goring's work determined that Goring honestly actually supported Lombroso's theories more than he admitted. Something that I found interesting was Lombroso specifically mentions Dostoevsky. He describes him as a degenerate, contentious figure. He regards Dostoevsky as a criminal anthropologist. Lombroso provides a portrait of Dostoevsky drawn from Michael de Vogue. An anthropologist is a person who studies humans, and Lombroso didn't like the novelist Dostoevsky because he understood the criminal mind too much. Dostoevsky was a Russian fiction writer novelist, stating that novels are not just forms of which ideas are expressed, they are themselves. Essentially, most people present talks about philosophy. Here is my idea, and Dostoevsky presents the story itself, explaining how philosophy works. Let me show you how a story where his idea is tested. To end my presentation, here are my 3 references. Thank you for watching.